guys, and welcome back to another episode on Piscator UK. If you're new to the channel guys, thanks very much for joining me today. Well guys, you join me with my new toy, float tube, and those that follow me are probably wondering what on earth possessed me to get a float tube when I already have a kayak. And as much as a kayak is practical, it's probably more practical than a float tube. The reason that I got this, and the main reason I got this, is my kayak is not the lightest of kayaks. It's a bit of a beast, and I am limited to where I can launch the kayak, particularly on freshwater venues. Hence the reason for getting the float tube. I think it's just a little bit more versatile in where I can launch it. This is the Savage Gear V2 High Rider, and they come in two different models. There's a 150 model and a 170 model, and this is the 170 model. The 150 and 170 are pretty much identical, except for the 170 is a little bit bigger, a little bit longer, and because of the size you do get a set of oars with the 170, where the 150 it doesn't come with oars, and that is pretty much the only difference. In terms of weight, they're much about the same, round about the 12.5 kilo mark between the two of them, so again not a lot of difference. But the biggest difference for me in getting the 170 is that it has the oars, and I'll come on to a reason why that's important to me. And with the 150 and 170 models, you get pretty much as standard, with the exception of the oars. They're pretty much the same. You get obviously the float tube, you get 3 side storage tubs which are reasonable size, and you get one in the front which is like a half circular shape storage tub, which is quite deep, and you can get bits and pieces in there, your lunch, maybe a set of waterproofs, etc. For the storage tubs, there are straps that's on each side of the float tube, and you can put them where it's suitable for yourself and your fishing that you want to do. You can move them up to the front, up close to the front, away from your arms, which is what I like, rather than having them close and being boxed in with my arms. And the same on the other side, you can put that up the front, away from your elbows, etc. You obviously get the inflatable seat, which makes it the High Rider, so you have got quite a sort of raised sitting position, which was one of the reasons why I went for this model. And both models have the crossbar, which fits into the 2 slots, and it acts as a line tray if you're maybe fly fishing, and it's also got a handy measure tape. The actual bar itself is 98 centimetres, so it's close to a metre, so the overall bar is a good sort of measuring bar as well. And also, as standard, you get a foot pump, and that's pretty much it, what you get with the float tube. And at the back of the seat you also get 2 inserts there for your rod. I've just actually put some PVC pipe in there to make them a bit more rigid, and so you can get your rod butts in there a lot quicker. So that's it guys, Savage Gear 170 V2 High Rider. Once I'm on the water, I'll give you a rundown of how I think it performs on the water. So guys, now that I'm on the water on the float tube, conditions today are not perfect for the float tube by any means. The wind's gusting up to 20 miles an hour, and the average wind speed is about 12.5 miles. But I thought I'd just take it on the water and show you what it's all about. Now, at the minute you'll notice that I'm actually rowing the float tube, and from the outset of getting the float tube, that is one thing I noticed, and quite frankly it's not as easy as I thought it was going to be. The first time I used it, I didn't have the oars on. I thought I'll do without them, I'll just use the fins, and I found it quite challenging to say the least. It was the wind was blowing strong that day as well when the first time I had it out, so not ideal conditions to actually give the float tube a try. But I took it out and I found it really hard work. For those of you that haven't used a float tube before, or use the fins. I'm using the fins at the moment just to go nice and slow, as that is the normal speed using the fins anyway. For those of you that haven't used fins or been on a float tube, you basically use all your muscles from your core right down to your toes, and you will use muscles that you've never used before in your life probably, and you will feel it the first time you're out on it. But most people I spoke to, they've said, you know, you will get used to it, your body will adjust, and it has done. I've been on the float tube 2 or 3 times now, and my body is getting used to it. Although I can feel it in my core just paddling a little bit with the fins. So I've done a few speed trials, if you want to call it, using speed as the loosest term possible, just using the fins. I had the fish finder on that day, and the maximum I could get out of it was 1 mile an hour, and that was on a pretty calm day, the second time I used it. With the oars, I can get nearly 2.5 miles an hour, so a massive difference. So I'm so glad that I got the 170 model that came with the oars, otherwise I would have been selling the 150 if that's the one I started with and there was no oars, because I did find it challenging. But now that I've got the oars, it's really good, and I predominantly use the oars just to get to where I want to go a little bit quicker, and it's sometimes good just having one oar out so you can turn the float tube really quickly, because turning with the fins quickly is really hard. It does take a bit of practice. When you're normal finning, when you're normal like just paddling along and you're not actually thinking about turning quickly, you can just use one fin and you will turn really slowly. Whether you're going left or right, you know, you'll get to where you want to go, but it will be slower. But just by having one oar out, when you're fishing, you know, it just takes one little sweep of the oar and you turn really quickly. Or you can back oar, and again you just turn really quickly, which is really helpful when you are paddling into a wind, because the wind will just want to swing you around really quick. But if you've got one oar out, you know, I'll probably use, because I'm right-handed, I'll probably use my left oar, keep the rod in my hand, and I can still fish and, you know, just do what I need to do, and just have the one oar just to guide me, keep me into the wind, and I can keep finning at the same time just to keep me steady, keep me in the same place. So yeah, my opinion on it on the outset wasn't very good, and to be honest, I did say at the beginning, you probably thought, what on earth made me want to buy a float tube? And I thought the exact same thing the first time I took it out. But I've got it now, getting a bit more used to it. I've got the setup how I think I need it. Today I didn't bring the fish finder or anything. I'm just going to do a little bit of drop shotting, a little bit of light spinning, ultra light spinning, and see if I can pick up the odd perch. Just for an hour or two. First fish on, guys. After several casts, I think it's a little jack. If it's a perch, it's a PB. I've only got 4-pound line on. This is on the ultralight BFS setup. Just taking me for a tow. Now I've got a light wire trace on. Yeah, I think it's a little pike. Yeah, a little jack. I hate the small ones because they're so feisty. And the first time I was out on the float tube, one jumped right into the float tube when I hooked it. jack, probably a couple of pound, but it gave a superb fight on the ultralight gear. Get this guy back. So that's it guys, that's the new toy, and yeah, hopefully it's give you a little insight into the float tube, especially the Savage Gear V2 High Rider. And yeah, hopefully see you soon on the water, and thanks very much for watching.